Ladies and gentlemen, if you are into creepy, geeky, and spooky, and maybe a little bit psychological, this video may be for you. When I found out about this, I think my head probably exploded. Just kidding. My head didn't actually explode. But exploding head syndrome is a real thing. I'm not lying. If you don't believe me, you can check my channel. I made a video about it. Imagine you wake up one morning. Your alarm shrieks, the coffee machine sputters, the birds are singing outside. Life is going on. You sit up, and from that moment you sit up, you know you're dead. No, not a metaphorical dream scenario like I died at my high school reunion and you're waking up from a nightmare, and not like,
OMG girl, I'm literally dead.
Also not literally dead, because you aren't literally dead either. But for some strange reason, you have this inclination that your organs have shut down. Your brain is void, and you are living in a zombified husk of the person that you used to be. This isn't a Kafka-esque punchline. Some people actually have a condition that make them believe that they are dead. And I know what you're thinking, Melody, how can you believe that you're dead when you're alive? You just do. I'm sorry. I know it may not sound like it makes sense, but we're gonna get into it today. Maybe I can shed a little bit of light on you for Cotard syndrome. And that is how Google told me to pronounce it. I would call it Cotard syndrome, but I believe it's Cotards. Ooh, that sounds real close to something I'm not supposed to say on YouTube. Cotard syndrome, or also known as the Cotard delusion, is a rare disorder where a person holds a fixed belief, like, I am dead. I have no organs. My brain is gone. And it does fall under the category of nihilistic delusions. It was first identified by the French neurologist Jules Cotard in the 1880s, who called it le délire de négation. The delusion of negation. That French was so bad. Nobody clipped that, alright? Nobody be showing that to any sexy French people, because that would be embarrassing. Good thing YouTube only exists in America. And by the delusion of negation, it meant more thoroughly, I negate my life, my body, my existence. To put it bluntly, your mind is saying game over, but your heart is still doing a cool 72 BPM. You're alive, but you believe that you are already dead. Aside from nihilistic beliefs like, I am dead, I'm literally just skin and bones, other symptoms include having a belief of no moral existence. For example, I have no soul. Cotard syndrome can display differently. Respectfully, from person to person, they're all going to have different beliefs. The gist of Cotard syndrome is that you believe you don't exist or that you are dead. But because of these symptoms, those symptoms have very destructive side effects, like frequent self-neglect, refusing to bathe or even eat. Sometimes they also have delusions about immortality. Yes, as weirdly enough as that sounds like a paradox, it does happen. But consider it this way. Since these people with this delusion believe that they are dead, some of them think that they cannot die again. They can't be harmed. So they'll take risks or engage in dangerous behavior just because they believe they can't die because it doesn't matter anymore. If you already believe that you're dead, there's no point in eating, there's no point in bathing, there's no point in going out with your friends, and there's no point about being careful, reading expiration dates, or giving a shit about how much medicine you take. One of the most prominent cases of Cotard syndrome, which Jules Cotard himself identified, was Mademoiselle X, which sounds so badass. In the case of Mademoiselle X, Mademoiselle, I feel like I'm saying it wrong. It sounds wrong in my mouth. In the case of Mademoiselle X, she believed she had no brain, no stomach, and no nerves. So she refused food and eventually died of starvation, despite the fact that a neurologist was literally trying to study and treat her. In other instances of the Cotard delusion, some people believe that they are on the verge of dying. For example, they might believe that they are rotting away or decomposing, but acknowledge the fact that they still have to do everyday activities because they are still a member of society. They live in a constant state of anxiety and existential stress. I'm sure the question that's probably on your mind is, how do you even come to this consensus? How can it be possible that you're doing day-to-day activities, but you believe you don't exist, you believe you're dead, or you believe you're rotting away when you're clearly not? And what causes people to get this delusion? There is no single trigger that causes the Cotard's delusion. It's actually a cocktail of risk factors that over time convince you to believe this rather than it just kind of happening all at once. Cotard syndrome can be caused by trauma, severe depression, anxiety. There are also neurological triggers for someone believing that they are dead, such as head injury, migraine, but most commonly, strokes. There's also the risk factor of your mind being less competent as you get older. A lot of sources say that Cotard syndrome is more prominent in older people, but it is not unheard of for younger people, even as young as teenagers, to get this syndrome as well. But if you have some kind of psychotic disorder, such as schizophrenia, you're also more likely to obtain Cotard syndrome. But here's where it gets interesting. Just because you have a major depressive disorder, you've had a stroke, or you're getting really old, it doesn't mean that you're going to get Cotard syndrome. Obviously, most professionals believe that people with Cotard syndrome have an amalgamation of these conditions. For those of you who are still confused about how this could happen and how you could physically think you are dead when you are alive, the logic of dead people don't think they're dead doesn't really apply. And to demonstrate that better, I'd like to reintroduce a topic of disassociation. Disassociation is a mental process. Usually some kind of condition contributes to this, like anxiety or depression, and it causes a person to completely disconnect from their thoughts, feelings, memories, and even sense of identity. But to get more specific, a branch of dissociation is depersonalization. It is possible that you can disassociate from your body, thoughts, and feelings to such an extent where you feel like nothing is real and you are controlling your body from a third-person point of view. I feel like it is much easier for people to understand a complex mental issue like Cotard syndrome if they've experienced something similar but maybe is not as severe, such as dissociation or depersonalization. And if it makes you feel any better, Cotard syndrome is extremely rare, with less than 1% of the world's population ever having it. Even across the entire world population of psychiatric patients, it only affects 3.2% of people with pre-existing conditions that could give you Cotard syndrome. So getting it is like finding a needle in a haystack. So the worst case scenario is literally believing you're just a skin sack with bones inside and you no longer exist, so you refuse food and even hospital treatment, which is, let's be real, terrifying. But there is a glimmer of hope because people with Cotard syndrome can recover. The first way that Cotard's delusion is treated is figuring out what underlying problems are causing these nihilistic delusions to manifest. For example, if this person has had a brain injury but also suffers from depression or anxiety, the depression and the anxiety could be treated with medications, and then as the brain heals on its own from the brain injury, the Cotard's delusion will kind of go away. Basically, it's possible for you to know that your brain thinks you're dead, so you have to use a third-party force to help you convince your brain that it's not. You just gotta outsmart your own noggin, you know? At the end of the day, the delusional term walking corpse syndrome makes great clickbait. Obviously, if you're watching this video, I hope it was good clickbait. But the main core of Cotard syndrome and other nihilistic delusions are deeper. It's when you lose your sense of self, of who you actually are. And for those of you watching this, the next time you hear someone say, OMG, I'm literally dead, maybe just give them a little pat on the back. Thanks for sticking with me through this one if you've made it this far, because Cotard syndrome isn't mainstream horror. With less than 1% of the entire world's population experiencing it, it's a pretty niche subject. Until next time, stay weird, or at least perceive yourself as weird, and I'll see you in the next one. Until next time, thanks for watching.